This is part 1 of our 5-part decorating series, Sweet Baby. Today, I share with you how I made this sweet baby bottle. Several months and several series ago, I decided I wanted to do a Christmas-themed baby set. I originally wanted to call it Santa Baby, and I said so in one of my other videos. But when it came to designing it, I just couldn't figure out how to make the Santa part work. I knew I wanted to do a red and white theme, so I thought Santa hats would be perfect. But I was really apprehensive about how well I would be able to execute making small Santa hat shapes in various ways, like wet on wet or as transfers. So I scrapped that idea. Then, the next obvious choice, using red and white, was peppermint. Now you should know I absolutely love an exclusively red and white Christmas theme. I've been slowly transitioning my Christmas decorations in my home for the past several years to candy cane colors. So that is exactly what this theme is. So it is right about now that you should be very confused by this blue. I'm not entirely sure why, but in my ponderings, I decided that I should do a girl and boy version of these cookies, and so settled on a nice blue and white peppermint. My thoughts gravitated around the idea of baby showers in December. Do people really use the lighter pastels for baby showers this time of year? Maybe they do. Or maybe I talked myself into this because I'm not a huge fan of pastel colors and have already had my fill of them this year from all of the dresses I had to make for the Princess Chronicles series. I first saw these shapes used by Stephanie at Little Cookie Co. and loved them. So I hopped onto Amazon to find them. I settled on the 7-piece set by Anne Clark. For the cookies themselves, I again used my newly adapted pumpkin spice sugar cookie recipe that I went over in part 4 of Making Cozy Fall, Icing Cozy Pie Commentary. I cut the shapes out using my new baby shower cookie cutters, then baked them for about 12 minutes in a 375-degree oven. Once they're done, I immediately smooth out the tops with my spatula so that I end up with a nice flat cookie, since they have a tendency to have an uneven, puffy surface from baking. After 5 minutes of cooling on the cookie sheet, I transfer the cookies to my cooling rack while fighting the urge to pick them up with my one hand because they're still soft and could easily break. I will only be using 5 of the 7 shapes for this series. I decided not to use the foot or the onesie. But besides this bottle, I will be showing you the jammies, bib, rattle, and carriage. I feature the complete decorating of one set of colors from start to finish, but will add in bits of footage of the alternate color as well. You may have noticed that I am using a 1 consistency outline and flood for the wet next to wet technique I'm employing here. I did make and use a soft peak piping consistency for each color, but I only use it for the details I add to each cookie. Anyone who has seen more than 2 of my videos knows I so much prefer to not see the outline on my finished cookies. So more often than not, I elect to use 1 consistency for both. My eventual goal is to become so good with a 2 consistency outline and flood that I can actually cover my outline with my flood. I know it can be done, but I'm not there yet. So for now, I rely on my thinner icing to allow them to melt together seamlessly. I do really like the simplicity of wet next to wet. It has the finished look of something complex, but in reality is quite simple to execute and takes far less time than flooding in sections, which you will see in all its multi-part glory in part 5 when I show you the carriage. The bottle and the jammies are more on the simplistic side of the designs I made, and the other 3 are more complex. I even try out pressure piped writing on the bib in part 3. This was not the very first bottle I made. I found out after completing the first one that I had to change up my order of operations a bit. You can see here that I outlined this section first and then made the vertical stripes. The problem with this is that I couldn't get the ends of the lines to sit down nicely. Doing it this way allows me to nip off any of the ends that are sticking up and then use my outline to cover them up. You will see in the pictures at the end how doing it this way makes the finished product look so much more polished. I consider this a win, which helps me to feel accomplished, which helps to give me the power to keep going. In fact, I'm very happy with all of the cookies in this series and feel super accomplished with the entire set as a whole. I needed this win. If you happen to have watched the Making Cozy Fall series, you will know I had a number of struggles, leaving me feeling underwhelmed with something about every single cookie I made. It caused me to undermine my thought going into that series that I had progressed past the beginner stage of cookie decorating. Well, this week I got back on the horse and I'm so glad I did. I was so happy with these cookies, I left my recording equipment set up and the very next day decorated a set of Disney cookies for an upcoming series after the holidays. By the way, nailed it on those cookies. For these measurement lines, I'm just eyeballing placement, hoping that it looks okay once I'm done. I'm pretty happy that at least I was able to stop the lines at pretty much the same spot all the way down. My vertical bottle cap lines being a bit imperfect are no worry, but wonky measurement lines would look a bit weird. As I laid down the lines, I intentionally let the line start a little over the edge of the cookie so that I would be able to come back and nip off the ends. If you do this while the lines are still wet, the end effect is that the line is kind of wrapping around the edge, which works perfectly here because the illusion is that this bottle is round. Now, if I were, say, making a ruler, I'd wait a few minutes until the icing had crusted and then nip off the end, which would create a very sharp edge appropriate for that kind of design. Being careful not to use too much, I glue on these cute little candy canes with my white soft peak icing and then tap them down very lightly so that I don't have any glue ooze out from underneath. I will show you in part 2 how I made these candy cane transfers. See you next time!
Next time on Kuny's Cookie Chronicles.
This is part 2 of Sweet Baby. In part 1, we made a wet-on-wet bottle. Today, we make a simple set of jammies and show you how I make candy cane transfers.